Right. Today, I want to explain to you why I'm very glad that I gave up on my dream. So it's very different from the previous video because I want to talk to you about my passion for game development. I'm very passionate about video games, and for years, actually, I think, yeah, close to 10 years of my life as a young adult and teenager, I was very dialed in into making video games, and I really wanted it to be my living, to be my future, to maybe get a job in video game development, and but also just creating my own project. And I was very much yearning to do that. Um, to give you a bit of context, I started I think when I was very young, but I really started learning when I was almost 18, where I started to learn programming for real. And since then, so I paid for a course, for example, and since then I published I think 20 plus games on itch.io. I'm very happy about that. Most of them are very small, very experimental, or just very simple. But that's not really the point. I was very interested in game development, and a lot of them actually, a lot of projects are not public or not on itch. So I really did a lot in those years. And in general, I'm very passionate about video games in general. About like I know way too much about these kind of things. That's what I'm going to say. Uh, and yeah, for a while, I was very interested in like how to market a game, how to make a living out of it as an indie game developer. I'm sure if you've been interested in that topic, there is a lot of role model figures, for example. As much as he has flaws, I'm very inspired by, for example, Jonathan Blow and other game developers like this who managed to make a name for themselves. And I really thought I wanted to do that. But a few years ago, I don't remember exactly. I think it was actually, let's say, 3 years ago, that I actually kind of gave up, and I'm very glad I did. I gave up making game dev my full time job. I gave up making it my main aspiration for life, and there is a few reasons for that. Um, well, a lot of reason. But what I can say, for example, is that I think for overall it wasn't my zone of genius. Um, for the illustration that you see in the background, those are mine, and I think I got good at making illustration and making art in general way faster than I got good at making games. Um, and I think they managed to touch people more, which is the most important part for me. So this way of connecting with people is way more effective for me with illustration, and it's something I really enjoy. So that's really the way how I shifted my approach these past few years, is to dive deep into illustration, and it has been great so far. And what I wanted to say also is that making games is also very hard. I'm not. I'm sure you can imagine, but it's really hard. It's really hard to make a full blown project, and then you have to market it, and you have to sell it. You have to make sure that it's provide that from the very beginning. It's gonna provide what people expect from a video game. And it has been very hard to wrap my head around. It has been very easy to, for example, make a small project, or create a small world, or do a bunch of illustration and throw a quick story at the wall. But most of them, first of all, were not very good. But also, it's making a full-blown project and making it your living require a totally different type of skill set and dedication that I just didn't have. Um, and that's why at some point, around 3 years ago, decided to shift. And I make sometimes games for fun, or I'm toying with the idea of making a quick project or things like that. That's something actually I did. I was actually looking at, for example, N64 developments, because that's something I would be very interested in. As I have a lot of a little obsession like this. But I really don't want it to be my main thing anymore. This way I kind of gave up doing it full time. And I want to share that with you because, like I said in my previous video, when you're young, you have very all or nothing mindset. And also you tend, a lot of people, and myself included until recently, really, how do I say, we always have been taught to, look for the inner child, or like, what were you interested in as a kid? And I think it's part of that is very good because once you are not a kid anymore, you are very formatted into believing or desiring certain things that you might not really vibe with completely. So I think it's a good thing to do some introspection and look back at what you're interested in. But what I want you to understand is that you shouldn't let your teenager self dictate your adult life. If you want to, completely change course, realize that you've made a mistake, or that you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, well, you can pivot and do something else, rather than stubbornly trying to fulfill the dream of someone who is not you anymore. That's something really that I had to learn the hard way. I had a lot of resistance to give up on that dream because, like I said, I'm still very passionate about video games and how it's made and etc. But at the same time, I don't want my past self to dictate how I behave and what I should do with my life. I think that's let's say you need to really distinguish between giving up on your dream because it's that society tells you to, and taking a deep introspection and realizing that this you're no longer aligned to what you were believing before. And I think that's healthy, but it's very hard to do, I have to say. It's very hard to come to terms with it and know if you are doing the right things or you're not making something that you're gonna regret in the past. I might do some video games in the future, who knows, but I no longer want to make it my full-time job. I no longer want to live off hacking the Steam algorithm or anything like that. And this makes me actually, it's remove the weight because you might want, for example, to let's say, for example, you want to write novels, but you have a lot of resistance about all of the publishing part, even self-publishing, marketing, or you might there might be like everything else around, or even just adapting a structure or speaking to adapting some trope to make your reader understand, things like that. If you've been really struggling in an opaque way to everything around, it's okay to change course, decide to do it as a hobby on the side, or maybe as something deeper you want to fulfill. Like, for example, me, as while I was making games, I really love to show different worlds, different characters. I was very character focused at the time, and you can see that I continue to do that through my illustration. So it's not really that I completely changed and completely lost everything that was connecting me to that passion, but it simply evolved, and something deeper that I was interested in now is pouring into my illustration. I wanted to share that with you because you have a lot of sacral, or you have a lot of people have a lot of opinion about childhood dreams and fulfilling a long time dream extra, and I wanted to share a bit of my perspective on it because it's not that simple. I can tell you that it's it's not all or nothing, and it's okay to evolve as time goes on. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you have some thought about it, if you have maybe your own experience about it, maybe there was something you were dreaming about when you were young that you no longer dream of, I would really love to hear your story. Please take care, and I'll see you next time tomorrow.